All right, we back. I forgot what episode we on, but we back. Wayne couldn't be here today. He had other obligations, but my man Andrew Bell is filling in for Wayne. Sitting in your seat, Wayne. The better
trying to fill big shoes.
Yeah,
Man.
How you doing today, brother?
I'm good.
How's it going?
Superintendent
at Woodbury. How they treating you over there?
Well, I love it.
You love it?
I love it, yeah. Shout out to the Woo.
Yeah.
Pride.
And we got the beautiful Miss Ayanna Dickerson on, my lifelong friend. How you doing, sister?
I'm good.
I put a bell on the end of her name, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I always do this. I did the same thing with Tracy. Damn, I'm sorry. Yeah. Ayanna Bell. I'm sorry. Let me get that straight. How you doing today?
I'm great. I can't complain. Happy to be here.
See, I can shout
Thank
you
you for having me, Twan.
See, I can shout you already. So it was great because this episode actually worked out perfectly because I got two educators on the show that's first and foremost really passionate about changing lives. First and foremost, it's not just a job to them. I saw the incident that happened, recently, not with Canton High, but a lot of high school, sports games is fights, it's shootings, it's parents getting involved with things that's on the field. Like it's insane right now, right? And I think what we in Generation Z, as far as the kids that we dealing with. I see a lot of people like via Facebook and things like that. They got all different type of opinions on these kids nowadays. Some say that they're radicals and they really love the way they move. And others think that it's just no hope for them, right? So I think this was a great segue to have you two on, and I would love to just hear y'all opinions, on the topic. So let's start here. So I'm big on like responsibility in our positions. I think I don't care what happened in your life. I don't care what's going on in your life. I feel like we have an obligation, to this next generation. And for some reason, me personally, in my opinion, I don't feel like that's happening, right? I feel like a lot of people are just going on with their lives and just leaving these young kids out to dry. So let's just start there. Do you guys feel that we have a responsibility to this younger generation, and why?
Absolutely. Absolutely, we have a responsibility. We have to be there for them. We have to model what it is that they need to see, what it is that they should be. I have a plaque in my office. When my students come in, they see it all the time, and it says, "Be the person that you needed when you were a child." So that's what I try to be for them. I try to model that person. We have a responsibility to them, no matter how radical people may feel they are. We have to be there for them. We have to model what it is. We have to plant the seeds for them to be to help them be the person that they need to be. We give them the things that they need to become that person. We help them out in whatever way that may be. You be there for them and try to help them become productive members of society just like we are.
So you feel like it's our duty to do that?
Absolutely. Somebody did it for us, right? I feel like, well, I can say somebody did it for me.
Somebody did it for both of us. That's why we are the way we are, and that's how our relationship is. But how many people around us that wasn't the case? We had beautiful households, both of us, right? We had people that loved us. We had people even in the street, that really care for us dearly, right? That's a blessing. How many people we know that wasn't the case though as well? It's like, right?
You're right. It's plenty of people that we grew up with that didn't have that. But I also believe that in the school systems back then, so I look at the school system now and the school system when we were growing up, some people say that it wasn't a lot of black educators, and I would disagree. I can think off the top of my head so many educators in the city of Camden that made me look at them and say, I want to be like this person when I grow up, or this teacher, Miss Harrison, Miss Carter. They were really close friends. If you went to Morgan Village, you knew them, and they stayed on us. And they were. I remember Miss Harrison used to say things to us like, we would come into class on a Monday, and she would literally say to the whole class, now somebody came back from the weekend and you stink. And was dead serious, didn't crack a smile. And she would say, we dealt with hygiene before we left. You take a shower. So that was a home away from home. She was instilling to be clean, instilling to take a bath in us. And some people may not like her delivery, but she was real. And I respect that, and I loved her for that. And she was honest with us, and not only she taught us about education, but she also taught us about life.
What you think?
I mean, as an educator, of course, I believe it's my responsibility. And the older I get, the more I realize. I always realize how much influence I can have. I think influence is like super important. Like more than power is like to be influential. So I feel like even when I was I started in CAMDEN, I was a substitute teacher, but I gained influence very quickly because the kids were invested in trying to get to know who I was. But I paid them attention, and so when you pay a lot of attention to kids and you're like consistent and like you're like persistent with them, you're patient with them, and all that stuff kind of like pays off. But as an educator, if I don't feel like it's my responsibility, this for me personally, I shouldn't even be in education, especially dealing with black and brown kids. It is my responsibility. It's like my purpose. Like it kind of like even makes our marriage even stronger because we come home and we talk about the things that are happening with our young people, and like how can we be more of an influence even on the young people that we come in contact with every day. Like even as a superintendent, my reach is not directly to kids every day, but I'm in a situation where my office is in the middle of a high school. So when I feel like I'm tired of talking to adults, I'll go walk the hallways and talk to kids. My first week in Woodbury, I was walking in the hallway. A young lady said to me, she introduced herself, and within 5 minutes she said, I'm going to call you Dad. She said, because I don't have a dad, so I'm going to call you Dad, right? This was 2 years ago. A couple weeks ago, we go to the football game. I'm with now my wife, and she says, oh, so if he's my dad, then you my stepmom. And like just that fast, she clicked onto us. Now, if I was the type of person who was like, nah, I'm not your dad, and I could have really traumatized her even worse, but she sees something in me that she wants. She saw something either in Jan that she doesn't know that she wants, and my job is to try to figure out how to give it to him. We just plant the seeds. I'm not, I can't really force them to do anything. Just plant the seed, and hopefully, maybe somewhere down the line it gets watered and it comes to light for them. But it is our responsibility.
Right. Okay, that leads me to the next thing. Like, so I'm sorry, you at CAMDEN High. You a teacher at CAMDEN High.
So
well, I'm
big
sorry.
picture.
Yeah.
But we're in on the CAMDEN High campus.
I get confused with all that. And obviously you were a superintendent at Woodbury. I'm probably about a couple years removed from being in the schools. And again, I would love to hear y'all opinion on this. In this day and age, I see a lot of people that's just coming for checks. And I think that's a lot of the problem. Even with your example you just said right now. All you did was listen to what the kid said, and you didn't shun their response to you. That's all you did was listen. And it made the comfortability come, right? But I see a lot of people that's just coming and just wanting to go home. And what I mean by this, the deeper thing is, I think it's some with our generation, and I think other generations as well. I think it all plays a part. Like I think we're too lazy as a whole to really invest that time as a whole. I'm not talking about certain people. I think the trauma that we've been through and other things like that, I just think people still are trying to get through, just better their own life instead of investing in the next child and whatever that you learned and things like that. Like, do you guys see, I think you know what I'm trying to get to. Do you guys see anything like that, and what's your feelings about that?
So we're definitely dealing with a lot of trauma. We're dealing with generational trauma. I see. So I'm actually a counselor at Big Picture.
Oh.
And
yeah, you are a counselor.
Yeah. So
yeah, I forgot about that.
You see, this generational trauma is a huge thing. and it happened with the parents, with the grandparents, and now this generation is a little different, but it's spilling over into them, and nobody is dealing with it within the family. They just allowing it to keep brewing and brewing and brewing. So you hear, for instance, you hear in the family, this person, older family member is touching the younger children, right? So the family just don't talk about it. It's not a conversation, but it's happening. So it continues to happen and it continues to happen. And now this generation, it's happening to them, but they're not being quiet about it. Whereas the older generations, you know how in the black community, how we view law enforcement. It's the whole situation of no snitching. You don't tell on your family. You don't snitch out your family. So they try to deal with it inside of the family, but it's never being dealt with. So now this generation, they get in on social media, and that's the animal that nobody can control, because the child is over it. They're at their boiling point, so they try to get instant gratification. So they go right to social media and they put the family business all on social media. Now the family arguing on social media, going back and forth. The family is split because some people agree with them because they know other family members it happened to. Then the older family members is like, no, this is not how we do this. And sometimes social media can make it worse, but then other times it can actually help. But I think and so for that reason, some people might look at these children as radicals, but are they really forcing families to deal with those traumas? That's how I kind of look at it. Like, they're making you deal with this because they don't want to live in that trauma anymore. So they're forcing the family to deal in that. And if that means I need to put this on social media for y'all to see that I'm hurt, and for y'all to do something about it, because I'm gonna let the world see it now. So y'all have to do something about it.
Right.
So are they radicals or are they really smart?
I think they are extremely smart, and I think they are radical. I just think they have no structure, and I think that comes from people that's supposed to be giving them the game, but you got your own things to worry about. Mm-hmm. Like, what you think?
I call some of our kids, I call them lawless advocates. So they feel like they're advocating for themselves, or advocating for their generation, but they do it in such a lawless manner that the message that they're trying to get out to people doesn't get heard because of their delivery. Their delivery sometimes is just, or the way they go about things, is just lawless at times. Like, we're looking at a lawless generation at times. Like, they have no respect for, you can advocate for a certain thing, but if you can't respectfully talk to, sometimes they can't even decipher who's like with their advocacy and who's against them. So everybody just gets it all. Everybody gets the brunt of it all. And like, I could just see it, I try to give examples. I could just see it like every day in the, how I work. So I started teaching in the middle 90s, right? Mm-hmm. When y'all was babies. Mm-hmm. And there's certain things, when I would say things to a kid or like approach a kid, I didn't have to know the kid or anything, and their response would be different. Now I'm here, this 2021, it just happened the other day. I responded to a kid in a certain way, and I kind of just touched them on the arm and said, hey, like, don't do that. And they, kid was doing all this. I said, oh, I had to dig into another bag, like, don't do that. We don't play. And it became a thing, and I was like, okay, so let me just call your house, let me talk to your mom. So I had to go all the way through all of those, steps, because this child decided that I don't, even though you're the superintendent of schools, I'm gonna still try to be disrespectful. You know what I mean? And so here I am trying to advocate for her, trying to help her, but she couldn't see that. So the lawlessness that she had was like, it doesn't matter if you're the superintendent or not. Don't put your hands on me. But it wasn't like, I'm trying to say, hey, how you doing? You got nice sneakers you got on. Don't touch me.
I'm glad you said that with the parent aspect, because Mimi think that me talking about our generation and the previous generation, she said, like, nah, that's going back. Like, we need to worry about now and not worry about what happened in the past. But I'm like, because you're not just fighting that little girl, you fighting whatever system they came from. Like, so what do y'all believe as far as educating the parents too? Like, because they're going home to them a lot, right? They only see you a couple hours a day, and you might be saying the best things ever, but I'm seeing this the whole other side of my life. Like, so what do y'all think about? I feel like me being a basketball coach, I'm not just And you can't just blatantly say like, yo, you doing wrong right now. But at the same time, I feel like you gotta finagle your way through the parents and give them the education just as much as the kids, because they're getting younger and younger.
Sometimes I feel like in the schools we may have more influence on them because we see them more than their families do. If you think about it, they come into school at 8 o'clock in the morning. They don't leave till 3 if they in after school. If they play a sport, they there till 6, 7 o'clock at night. When by the time they get home, 8 o'clock, they eating dinner and doing some homework and going to bed for the next day. Then you have some parents who's working overtime, so they really never see them. So I think we can have more influence as educators on the kids than their own parents can. But I also think when it comes to trauma, it's definitely a whole family, a whole community situation to deal with. Is in order to deal with a kid's trauma, you can't just. So a lot of these kids act out when you talk to them. It's something deeper. It's not just on the surface. 99%
of the time.
Right. It's something deeper. Something happened in the morning before they came home. I had a student in the first thing in the morning just crying. Like, why are you crying? She wouldn't say why she was crying, but nothing happened in school because she just got to school. So you crying from something that happened before you even came into the school. So this trauma has nothing to do with school. It's all outside of school. But what happens is, just like Drew just said, when you're trying to advocate for a kid, they can't see that. They see everybody as an enemy at that point, because I'm not even there. They don't think clear enough. They don't have the maturity to think clear enough to see that this person is trying to help me. They're not against me. But how can I see that they're not against me if I feel like my own family is against me? And that's how a lot of them feel. They feel like their family is against them, so how can anybody else be for me? But so you definitely have to deal with that trauma before you could really realize what's going on with really a kid. When I talk to kids and I'm like, you telling me this happened, but what happened before? Who you live with? Okay, you don't live with your mom. Where's your mom? You live with your aunt. How did you get with your aunt? And you start digging deeper and deeper, and you pulling off those layers, and you realize that it's some real trauma going on there. This kid really have a crazy life.
Is it enough for that? Like everything that you just said, how long did you get to counsel kids?
It's not enough time. It's not enough for me. It's not.
I'm serious. Like, I think we focus so much on, again, the structure and the whatever the mandate is of schools, but how we gonna get there? I don't know. I just feel like we skipping steps, yo.
Yeah, I think like social and emotional learning is like a huge part. But even like with the parents, like when I deal with parents, I consider myself a parent whisperer because I started to realize, like, kind of early on when I was like a vice principal, like back in like 2007, 2008. My first couple of meetings with parents, I made such a huge mistake because I wasn't listening. I was laying down the law. You gonna do this, and the thing just blew up, and I never got it. It's like my first 2 meetings, I was like, man, this is tough. And then I got people that I talk to, and I started to realize that when parents come in, I don't care if a parent's on 100, as long as they don't get too disrespectful or physical, I'm just gonna listen, because you gotta understand the parents that come to see us. Think about the trauma they went through in school. Like, as soon as they walk through a school door, the trauma gets triggered because maybe they didn't graduate, maybe they had a hard time in school. So they're coming with all that, and now their kid is experiencing the same thing. So my job is to like listen. As a principal, I thought I did a really good job of listening to parents, try to problem solve, but also holding the expectation and saying, okay, but this is the expectation. You still got to reach it, just like you try to reach a kid. I got to reach the parents. Okay,
never shy away from that expectation.
This is still the expectation. Like when you come in here, you can't curse everybody out, or you come in here, you please be dressed appropriately, or please stop telling him or her it's okay to curse a teacher out or fight. Like, that's not the expectation. So you got to constantly do those things and make the parents feel like their voices are being heard, because they're trying to advocate. Sometimes they don't know how to advocate for themselves or their families because most of the time nobody's listening to them, right? And so if they had enough trauma, if they're trying to put food on the table, they're trying to get a job, they're trying to, they got a record, they got all kind of things happening, the relationships are not going well, the last thing that they need stress from is the school, because the school allows them to send the kids there so they can get a break, like a break sometimes. And then when the school becomes a stressor, you know what I'm saying, that's how all that trauma starts to come in. I've had parents come in and literally I have to counsel parents. You know what I'm saying? So I have to counsel parents even to deal with their own kids. You know, if I had $1 for every mother that came in and was mad at me because when the son was 7 or 8 and he was acting up, it was like kind of cute and he had all the fresh stuff on. I said, listen, you creating a monster. Same parent come back, he's 13, 14, he's locked up, he's beating her in the head, and now she needs somebody to, you know, she's coming and crying like, I don't know what happened, I can't control him, I can't do anything with him. And that's not for me to say, see, I told you. It's for me to say, okay, I think this is here's the next steps I think we should take. It's happened, you know, more too often than I can count, but like that trauma is huge, but we have to have the right type of emotional intelligence to deal with it. Like, because you start to carry some of that stuff. You see teachers, you know, teachers are breaking down. You know, it's too much for them in the classroom.
Do y'all take things home? Because I mean, and I mean from like instances like that. Like, do you struggle with taking things home? Because I remember somebody told me a long time ago. They was like, you have to leave this at work. Like, if you, I know
that
you
sounds
really,
nice.
I know you really care about this kid, but you have to leave it at work because it's gonna be another one. They're gonna graduate. Then it's gonna be another one. It's like you just going.
But they become a part of your life.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why I love where I work. I've been there for 8 years, and I'm not just saying that because the camera is here. I really love where I work because we have a different curriculum. We have a different, how we set up is a little different than a traditional high school. So our curriculum, we one student at a time, so we understand that every child needs something different. But we also are really big on building relationships. So we make sure that every student in the building have a relationship with an adult in the building, a good relationship. So if you're going through something, and although I'm the counselor, that might not always be me. A lot of the students do like me, but then some students may rather talk to a different teacher. But you have to build that relationship with students so that you can help them. Or my boss, which is the principal, always say, no kid wants to know what you don't care to learn what you know until they know that you care. So you sitting here trying to teach me how to do math, teaching me all of these algebra terms, and I can't even really focus because I just got beat up by my uncle or stepdad last night, and nobody did nothing about it. So you got, and the kids probably sitting there with their head down, unengaged. They're not learning. So what's happening? This student is failing. But you got to be able to stop the class and figure out what's going on to that student or get them the help that they need. And at BPLA, we're really big on that. We strive to help students in that area. And from a counselor standpoint, I appreciate that.
Yeah, Ayanna not telling the truth though. You talk about, do you take this stuff home? I live with her, so the phone rings 10 o'clock at night, and I hear, what's wrong? She's talking to a student. You know, that phone ringing 11 o'clock at night, what's wrong? You know what I'm saying? And so, as an educator, I completely understand, like, you know, and so, you know, that becomes part of who we are.
Right.
You know, when that phone rings and that child needs help, like, because I work in education, I understand that. So it's like, you know, reach out, and she may ask me, like, you know, what do you think? Because sometimes things are confidential. The child doesn't want anybody to know. I don't know. You know what I mean? Right. But yeah, we try not to take it home, but whatever level you work at, if you care deeply about something, you know, enough, you know, it's going to come home with you. At times it's really hard to, you know, sometimes I've had like a few nights where I didn't sleep. Most of the time my motto is like, I sleep well at night. But there's been times where you know, decisions or things are happening and I worry about kids. And sometimes you got to bring the kid home with you. I used to live right over there on Atlantic Avenue. You know, when I lived downtown, always kids at my house. You know, when I coached, I always had somebody with me. It's just, when I worked in YAP, I was always, you know, with kids. That's just what I did, you know. So yeah, you bring it home with you.
Let me ask you this, because to what you said about the criteria of big picture, right? I don't feel like that's the norm. I think that should be the norm. Like, you need to have relationships with these kids. You know, you need to adapt to every single kid because every single kid is different, right? You as a leader, what do you look for when you hiring staff? Like, what criteria, what characteristics do you look for? Because I still think it's a problem with people I'm not doing all that. I'm not doing all that what she just said. That's too much. Like, I got other stuff going on in my life. I'm not doing all that. But that's what's needed in this system. So like, what do you look for as far as characteristics and traits when you about to hire a potential candidate for your staff?
That's a great question. So it's a couple of ways I answer that. A lot of times, if I have vacancies, I look for people I know, right? So I say, hey, we got a vacancy over here. I'm like the Surgeon Knight of Education. Come over here. Like, you know, how you did Death Row, come over here. Like, yeah, come work with me. But honestly, a lot of times people, because you have a certain reputation, people want to come and work with me. Yeah. So if I know your character as a teacher or as a leader, and I feel like you're a good fit for my team, yeah, come work. It doesn't, all the time, and every time it's not about relationships. Like, I'm not the type of person that says, because you're my friend, I'm gonna give you a job. I never do that. Because if you work for me and we have a relationship outside of it, you even get it worse because you gotta be almost like perfect.
It's a reflection of you.
Exactly. But when I'm interviewing somebody that I don't particularly know, of course I look at their resume, but I like interviews. I like to look in their eyes. I like to hear the statement. You know, like, people always call me like I'm intimidating in an interview, but sometimes I like to see through the fluff. When somebody says to me, it's always been my goal and dream to be an educator, I'm already done. You know, I'm like, man, that's the stereo. That's the answer that people always want to hear. When people ask me, how did I get an education? I say, somebody saw something in me, told me to go take some education classes, and I did. And I said, you know, and I had a natural ability to be with kids, and it just progressed. And then when I turned 30, 31, I had an epiphany. The light turned on. I grew up, and I said, okay, if I'm going to be in this game, I'm going to really do it the right way. If I'm going to be in education, I'm going to really be the best educator I can be. And so you kind of look at people's stories. I kind of like to hear the background. And sometimes I just really try to see something in people and say, I can work with that person. Even if they don't have a stellar interview, I feel like I can see something in them. And basically, you got to have a feel for it. The longer you do it, you get a feel. That I always get it right. No, I've hired people and I was like, they fooled me. But more times than not, I can spot a person I think I can work with, but you can't just hire them. You have to develop them. And that's I think that's what people miss it, because everybody's looking for the rock star. But there's not rock stars all the time. Every now and again, you'll come up with somebody that's a rock star, and you're like, yes, but most of the time, everybody's middle of the road. And as a leader, you have to develop that person. So like, if I'm a principal, I develop teachers. If I'm a superintendent, I develop leaders, principals, vice principals, directors. My job is to develop you. And so you don't have to come with all of the tools. We're going to develop those tools that I think you can have, and we're going to see. And either you're going to make the mark, or I'm going to have to cut you loose. It's just that simple.
And it's easy. I think the easiest thing is the kids. Adults, even so when you work in these schools, even if if Drew hires somebody and he's not too sure about this person, the kid's gonna tell you before anybody can tell you. Kids can tell when a person is genuine, and they can tell when they just there to get a check, and they gonna call them out every time.
Why don't we understand that? Like, they see it immediately.
Where y'all get this person from? And they'll call it out right in front of them. They'll be like, where y'all get this person from? Like,
I never met a rock star teacher that kids didn't like. Never. Like, if the person is a rock star, the kids will vouch for them, even if they're tough. Like, yo, that person, man, they tough, but that's my person. Right. You know what I mean? Right. If you are kind of, mediocre, do something shady with kids, like Ayanna said, they're gonna sniff you out in a minute. The kids can sniff out a fraud. Like, easy.
Easy.
Yeah.
Better than adults.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
real easy.
It sounds like so common sense, man.
So that's why we need people like you in schools every day to be teachers.
Man,
and if there was
it's the mandates, bro. It's hard for me in a traditional school setting. I know every school is different. I know the Woodbury is different, and what Ayanna said seems to be different. But the traditional settings is like it's hard for me, man. I think that's part of the problem for a lot of people that would love to be. I would love to be in the school, but like, you telling me that my lesson plans need to be done by Friday at all costs. It don't matter that this kid mom is on dope. Like, no, you need to do these lesson plans, or me being a counselor. Look, you only got 20 minutes because you got 25 other kids that you got to worry about. It's just like, I'm not saying I know the answer, but it always infuriated me with the structure of, and I know administration has a job, but it's like I I don't know.
It's a tough balance. I mean,
I don't subscribe to that. Like, I don't. I care about the kids, and this kid is hurting, but you want to just go with the status quo and whatever need to be done.
It's
and
the mandate.
You got a job, but I don't. That ain't my job.
The mandates do it help. It makes your job harder. Like, for an instance, I remember back in the day, you could put kids in your car, you could drop them off at home. Then they put out mandated, the state mandated, no teacher is allowed to drive a kid in a car. Kids would look me dead in my face like, Miss Dig, can you please take me? I gotta go to work. I don't have no other way to work. And I gotta tell this kid no, because it is even though in my heart, yeah, get in my car, I'll take you. Like, I don't care, even if it's on my way, let's go. But the state is telling me if I do that, I can potentially lose my job.
Like, I real quick, I'll give you a prime example, right? I was early on when I was like a teacher's assistant or something like that. It was a real dope dude named Mike Jones. He was teaching U.S. history, right? So he played this game one day. He had 5 kids lined up in a line, and they all was sitting in a seat, and they had one paper balled up, and they had to make it in a trash can. So the kid in the front was the privileged kid, and it went down the line. Like, he was filthy rich, like generations rich. They was just rich. They was the middle of the pack all the way down to the poor kid that lived in the projects. Poor kid was in the back. He couldn't get up and make the shot. So the object of the game, he had to make it sitting down and look around him. And the kid was like, how am I supposed to do that? And he was like, exactly. That's how life is for what we doing or whatever like that. And I was like, man, that's so dope, man. I'm coming in the next day excited. I'm like, oh, what we gonna do today? It's like, I gotta teach about King Arthur the 17th or something like that, because I still gotta follow, what the protocol is. And I never got past that situation, because you still gotta do that, and allude to what you just said. And it's like, I don't know, to answer your question, I would love to be in Ayanna's situation as far as counseling, but as far as in the class, man, it's like, I don't know.
I think you'll see, it's already happening, but you'll see a lot more like the social emotional learning, like kind of taking the forefront in education.
Okay.
And some of these mandates, especially around, like, I always tell people, people talk about learning loss from the pandemic, and I always say, what learning loss? Like, that's some made up kind of like expectation that people have, and so it's a buzzword. Kids been home, they have learning loss.
That's easy. That's easy to
but
say.
Like, whose measure is that? What was the expectation? And so, I mean, kids can get behind, but people don't understand. Like, when we came back last year in Woodbury, we got back into school at some point, and I met with the kids. So I have a superintendent's roundtable where I meet with students, and you could hear the students saying, "Yo, when we first went out for the pandemic, we thought, good, I get to sleep. Boom, I'm gonna be home all day. We thought it was fun."
Right.
They said it's not fun. We hate being home. We want to be back in school. So the kids were dealing with all kinds of trauma, because if your house is not in order, you know what I'm saying, now you home all day in a chaotic environment trying to learn. That's number one. Sometimes people need that, they need that social interaction with their peers that keeps them going. And the kids are just full of energy. Like, it sounds nice to be home in your bed, but the kids are 13 and 14. They got energy. They want to be out with their friends. They want to be in the cafeteria. They want to be cracking jokes. They want to play sports. They don't want to be home. And so I think, like, if education has to recover from anything, it's the emotional and social aspects of what has happened over the last 20 months, because we see it now. These kids got all this pent-up energy. Okay, what school you go to and where you at, there's a fight every 5 seconds. There's fights in the community. There's fights in the building. And you got to have right now, you really got to have the right adults in the right positions to try to get all this stuff in order. And like you said, if you got those folks come in to collect a check, people are retiring left and right now. We can't find educators, because with the pandemic, the way things are happening, these people are not, if they could retire, if they could quit, they're done. They're out. It's a shortage. So, we have to rethink how we are looking at education. We got to rethink how we're getting people certified and getting into the buildings. We got to rethink about what we are looking for, and so, it's a tough job. It's a balance, but as a superintendent, you're right. Like, I got mandates that have to happen from the state. We advocate for certain things to happen, but also we got to be creative. And I think, like, that's the fun part of the job, is to be creative
That's fair.
You know, like you got all this.
That's fair to say.
Money, government money, ESSER funds, and you know, if you're a good superintendent, you sit back thinking like, how can I create opportunities for my kids with this money that's been allocated from the state? Because it's not always going to be there.
And creators always find a way. Creators always find a way. So I mean, it's a great segue into the last part. So, in your opinion, what's the best approach to this generation that we dealing with? It's a broad statement with broad question.
So, show them that you care, and it's more than just making them feel that you care. You literally have to show them that you care about them. Just like Drew said about the 3 P's, you want to be patient, persistent, and persuasive. So patient, the kid might curse you out. That same kid might curse you out on Monday, and then Tuesday they need you. I'm sorry, Monday afternoon they'll need you. And you got to be able to pull back and be like, that's no problem. No matter how many B's or curse words they called you, you got to be able to be there for them, because you got to understand that trauma is deeper than anything. And you got to be able to turn that around, and you got to be patient enough to work through that with that kid and help them be better. Stay persistent. Stay on them. Don't let up. Even if you feel like we're dealing with a war, right? It's a bunch of wars inside of a war. And you fight the war that you can fight. You help where you can help. You make change where you can make change. You stay persistent. You stay on a kid. And you be persuasive. I mean, if a kid know that you care and know that you really there for them, you can get them to do anything that you want. Anything. But you gotta get them there. And that's the problem. A lot of our kids, they don't trust. They don't have that trust. You gotta show them that trust. You gotta show them that loyalty, and they don't get that all the time. But once they see that you are giving them that, they're gonna give it back to you, and they're gonna do whatever it is that you want them to do. I feel like I could get a kid to do anything that I want them to do. If I had that rapport with that kid, I can get them to do anything that I want them to do. And they going to listen to me. And even if they do something opposite, they going to come back and say to me, you told me not to do that, and I did that, and I messed up. But now what I got to do?
Right.
So and you got to have those 3 P's, that you got to be patient, you got to be persistent, and you got to be persuasive. And just continue to fight the wars that you can fight. It's not a lost battle. Nobody gave up on us. Nobody gave up on our generation. And you can remember the older people saying the same thing about this. This generation, they don't care about nothing. Now it's a new generation. We, the older people, saying they don't care about nothing. But they never gave up on us, so we can't give up on them.
Yeah, I concur. You know, like I think we both have the same mindset. Like, this generation is like, we're warring not so much against the kids, but we're like warring against like the system, like oppression. Like, we're warring against like lawlessness. And so when you in this war, there's several battles, right? And you ain't gonna win every battle, but if you win enough battles, you're gonna finally try to win the war. And so, like, as educators, while we got the energy, while we got the wherewithal, while we just have the insight, while we have the energy to do it, we keep fighting these battles. And so, like, we just keep fighting. And I'm crazy enough to believe that we can win.
Same.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, I remember when I was a principal around the corner here at H.B. Wilson, my first day as principal, my first team meeting, I had somebody tell me, you really think that you can change, you really think you can win and fix this mess? Like, these people don't, all this kind of stuff. And that's always stuck out to me, because I'm like, yeah, man, that's why I do this work, because I think I can win. Like, if you're not competitive enough to think you can win, you shouldn't. I told him, you should not be here.
Right.
And so, eventually we parted ways, because I said, you can't work on my team. Right. Because I believe that we can win. And it's like the battles is like, if I can get 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, like, you're not gonna get everybody. And that's the thing that people gotta understand. Some are gonna get lost. It's just the nature of, like, attrition. Like, some not gonna make it, but there's gonna be some kids that you're really gonna influence, and they're gonna say, it's because I was at practice, the practice I came through that night. I saw a guy there, and I was like, he looks familiar. And it was somebody that my brother used to work with at Urban Promise. And the first thing he said to me, he goes, yo, I ain't talked to your brother in a minute, man, but I'll tell you something about your brother, man. He saved my life. He was a grown man. And I'm like, wow, that's deep. I called my brother on the phone and said, yo, man, I saw this guy. He said, you saved his life. And I'm thinking, like, in my head, I'm thinking, that's the battle. So, like, he won that battle with that guy, gave him enough information to make it through to adulthood where he's a productive father. He was there watching his son play basketball. And he said, if it wasn't for him, it wasn't for your brother, I wouldn't have made it. That to me, that was like impactful. Like, wow, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I view it. Like, we in a war, but we're always in these constant battles, and we got to try to win these battles.
And essentially, if we lead like y'all saying individually, then people either not mess with you at all, or they'll follow you.
Yeah. Every time a kid graduate college, open up a business, come back to the city to help out. Every time you see that, every time a kid you watching TV and a kid playing basketball or playing football, or a kid playing Arnetta playing the trumpet with Beyonce, whatever it may be, every time somebody from Camden win, you won a small battle. And that person gonna come back, each one teach one. We came back to Camden and we talked and we helping out the city. So every time something like that happens, it's something small that helps the bigger picture.
And one thing I will say, Twan, just for my last statement is like, if you're working with kids and trying to influence kids, what young people want today is you to be your authentic self. Like, what I always get annoyed with is people who work with kids who feel like I got to get on their level, so I got to talk like them, I got to act like them, for them to respect me. And that's not what kids are looking for. They're not looking for another 12-year-old, 13-year-old friend. They're looking for an adult that that they can identify with. And you got to know what's happening. So you got to know what they're listening to. You got to know what they're watching. You got to know all the trends. You got to do your homework. But you also got to be the adult, and you got to be authentic into who you are. And so once kids know that you're being authentic into who you are, they respect that. They don't want you to be their 14-year-old friend. So stop trying to talk like them, act like them, and hang with them when they don't want you to hang with them. When they want to be around you is because they want guidance and they want direction. They don't, like, this troubles me when I see grown men leading young men down the wrong path. Like, you got to get into the right circle. When I see young ladies who say, I'm mentoring, but the lifestyle that they're living is going to lead that young lady down another dark hole. Like, stop doing that. Like, you're going to get in this game.
It's a whole nother subject, brother. That's a whole nother subject. Listen, Mr. and Mrs. Bell, thank you for coming on. You want to tell the camera how excited you are that Ben Simmons is back before we get out of here? Please.
I am excited Ben's back. I just need Ben to admit that he's got some mental health issues and ask for help. All is forgiven, Ben. Let's go get that championship, brother.